Lindell TV is pleased to present the Sentinel Report with your host, Alex Newman. Alex has written for a wide array of publications in the United States and abroad. He currently serves as a contributor to Epoch Times and foreign correspondent and senior editor for the New American magazine. Alex is the author of several books and has been a guest on countless radio and television programs and is a much sought-after conference speaker. Alex is best known for his reporting and research that has exposed the dangers and agenda of globalism. As the father of 5 children, Alex is working to defend faith, family, and freedoms from the hostile philosophies and ideas that are contrary to the Bible and the United States Constitution. And now, here is your host, Alex Newman.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Sentinel Report. I'm your host, Alex Newman. Thank you for joining us today. We're actually going to skip our news segment today. We have a very special guest joining us. He's going to give us some inside scoop details of what happened as the deep state was taking out some of Trump's closest allies. Incredible story. I refer, of course, to Paul Manafort, who actually headed up Trump's 2016 campaign for president for part of that time. But first, our daily Bible verse. This comes out of Matthew chapter 20, verses 25 and 26. Jesus called to them, and he said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant." And this is why, folks, in the Western world, we've had this long tradition of considering our government leaders as actually public servants. That's where we get the name public servants from. And I think we've moved away from that as a society. Increasingly, our leaders think that they are our overlords. And I do believe we need to get back to the Christian understanding of leadership, whereby these people are understood to be our servants. They are our employees. They are there for our benefit, not their own. And yeah, it's going to be a long time to get back to that. We didn't get into this mess overnight. We won't get out overnight. But I think the Bible offers a really good guide for that. Also, folks, if you go to libertysentinel.org, that's my website. You see it behind me. You can go to libertysentinel.org/shop, and we've got all kinds of great products, including my books, my DVDs, the Biblical Worldview series by Greater Than I Ministries, my book on the deep state, my book Crimes of the Educators, my talks on the Great Reset, transhumanism, what they're doing to our children in public schools, and of course, the deep state, which we'll talk a little bit about today. Also, if you don't want any books or DVDs, you can always go to my website and just hit that donate button, help keep us on the air. That's libertysentinel.org/donate. We appreciate our contributors very, very much. You guys help keep us on the air. And, of course, we do not use PayPal anymore because PayPal is evil. We have a much better service run by Christians. And so if you want details on that, shoot me a note. But anyways, those are ways that you can support us and help keep us on the air. libertysentinel.org/shop or libertysentinel.org/donate and help keep this program online. We appreciate you so much. All right, folks, I said we're going to skip news, but we do have one news item that's directly relevant to our guest. The FBI official who investigated Trump's alleged ties to Russia was actually just arrested for illegal ties to a Russian oligarch. This happened over the weekend. Former FBI agent Charles Moneygall, he was the head of counterintelligence in the New York field office. And again, he was a critical player in the investigation into Trump's alleged ties between Trump and Russia. You remember the conspiracy theory that Trump was secretly an agent of Putin or some such nonsense. Well, this FBI agent has now been arrested for his ties to this individual. That's according to CBS. Apparently, he had close ties to Oleg Deripaska, a Russian billionaire who was sanctioned by the U.S. government and was criminally charged last year with trying to violate those sanctions. And Paul, our guest today, knows some of the details about this individual, both from the FBI and the Russian billionaire. Paul, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a really interesting background. You've been a political consultant, a government affairs professional. You've got a 5-decade career. You say furthering the interests of the United States on the world stage. Of course, you ran Donald Trump's campaign in 2016. And I mean, phenomenal background here. You worked with Ronald Reagan to help get him elected. You and Roger Stone and another individual had a lobbying company that you used. Again, you say to advance the interests of the United States. And you've got a new book now, which I find absolutely fascinating. Political Prisoner, Persecuted, Prosecuted, but Not Silenced. It's a Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and Publishers Weekly bestseller. Paul, welcome to the program. Thank you so much. Before we get into the details of your book, any thoughts on this FBI official being arrested for his alleged ties to this Russian billionaire?
It's just one more piece that's becoming public. This particular FBI agent was up to his eyeballs on the whole Russian hoax. He was the one leaking information that was incorrect. He was the one talking to the media, talking to the Mueller Commission about the things that proved not to be true. And so the fact that he's finally being exposed, doing things that are truly treasonous from his position with the FBI is just another example of the truth finally coming out.
Yeah, I'm encouraged that so much truth is coming out. This is very good news, and more, I think, is going to come out. But before we get into the details of what happened to you and all that, you say in your book that you think Trump is going to win in 2024. Fascinating thought. Walk us through why you think that is, and what you think he needs to do to overcome the deep state and the challenges that are going to be placed in front of him.
Well, first of all, I think that he's got a record that he can run on that contrasts perfectly with the Biden administration record, whether it's on economics or it's on border security or on energy security, foreign policy issues. Trump's record is the counterpart, the opposite of what Biden has done in his 2.5 years as president. So for purposes of building an agenda for the campaign in 24 to oust Biden from the White House, and I do believe Biden will be the Democratic nominee, we have the perfect candidate with a record that contrasts the way we want it to. And to people who say, well, if we could just have Trump's policies and not Trump, I would just remind you that if you take Donald Trump out of the equation, whoever comes into the position of front runner for the Republican nomination will be treated the same way. I mean, they're already trying to discredit DeSantis because they view him as a potential nominee, and they're using the same lies and tactics against DeSantis as they use against Trump. So for people who say we just want to lower the level of the decibels in the political dialogue, it's not going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because that's a Democratic tactic to try and confuse, to distort, and to make it sound like they're rational and the Republicans are the irrational ones, when in fact it's exactly the opposite. So I think in the course of the nomination process to be the Republican nominee, Trump's record will be what's compared. It'll be the focus of his campaign. And I think that the Republicans still view him as the number one person to lead the party against Joe Biden in 24. All the polls show it. I mean, and again, you look at some of the polls that show slightly different kind of numbers. Look at the numbers. Look at who the people are taking the polls. So, I mean, do I think that Trump will be handed the nomination? No, he's going to have to earn it. Do I think he can earn it? Yes, I do. And do I think that other people shouldn't challenge him? Look, it's up to them. That's what the process is about. Trump had 15 people run against him in 2016, and he was a stronger candidate in November for it. I think that Republicans running against him will sharpen him for the general election. And I do believe that after the campaign nomination is over, the convention will nominate him to be the Republican nominee again.
Fascinating stuff, Paul. I want to go back now to 2016, 2017. To me, it was very obvious that something fishy was going on. First, they came after General Flynn, Trump's national security advisor, and then they just seemed to be targeting all of the key people who, first of all, helped Trump get elected, and second of all, were helping Trump to drain the swamp. You obviously were caught up in that. They said that you were a tax cheat and that you were involved in money laundering and deceiving the U.S. government, all kinds of stuff. Give us your take on what happened. Trump has used the term deep state a number of times to describe this kind of cabal, I guess, in Washington, D.C. that doesn't like outsiders coming in. Do you think there was some kind of orchestrated operation to take down Trump's key people and you got caught up in that? Give us your take on what happened.
Well, in fact, in my book, I go through the details of it, but just to summarize it for you today, I mean, we now know that what was called the Russian collusion hoax started really in 2015. We know now from testimony of Obama officials and Clinton officials that Obama in 2015, his White House was concerned that Hunter Biden's activities, business activities, were creating concern at the White House, in the State Department, and that Joe Biden had even been briefed by people from the White House that his son was causing issues. We also know from testimony that they decided in December of 2015, before I was ever involved in the Trump campaign, that because Hunter Biden was in Ukraine and because I had been active in Ukraine, electing governments and lobbying to have Ukraine become part of the European Union, I was active in Brussels working on that regularly, that they thought that they could find some dirt on me to deflect the concern from some of the concerns they had that might arise on Hunter Biden. Well, the reality is their research came up with nothing because I didn't do business in Ukraine, because Ukraine was an important country, I thought, to become part of Europe, but there was corruption in the country that I was not going to do business as somebody with firms that were in business in Ukraine, unlike what Hunter Biden did. And so when they came up with nothing, they just started to make things up. And in the book, I chronicle that. But when I then became Trump's campaign chairman, they just kept moving in the same direction. And we now know this Russian, they started this Russian hoax. Robbie Mook, the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton, has admitted under oath in a court that she was told by Hillary to begin a false narrative on Russian collusion, tying Trump and the Russians and Putin together. He admitted that. So yes, there was Russian collusion in the sense that there was, well, one other point first. We also know from John Brennan's written notes that have come out in the Durham investigation that he briefed Obama on this. So Obama's White House knew in July of 2016 that the Russian collusion was a campaign dirty trick by Clinton and that it wasn't true. Yet in that same month, the FBI and Peter Strzok instigated Crossfire Hurricane to find the facts on Russian collusion. And what did they do? They ended up hiring Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele ended up hiring Russians. Russians then went out to try and find dirt on Trump and me, Carter Page, Mike Flynn, found nothing. So they just made up the phony facts in the Steele dossier, which has been totally discredited by everybody. And that Steele dossier was then used for two things. One, for Obama, once Trump had won, to instigate a foreign policy national security review of the election that normally would take 6 months. Well, he got it done in less than 30 days. And in it, he said that there was Russian collusion, Russian involvement in the campaign. But interestingly, and both he and the Senate Intelligence Committee, Republican Senate Intelligence Committee, confused the facts deliberately, and Mueller did too. Russian interference that was alleged was hacking. Not hacking, but just, bots interacting with the social media, and that's what they found. They didn't find Russian collusion between Trump's campaign, and in fact, the only campaign that hired Russians was the Clinton campaign when they hired Steele and he hired Davydenko and the Russians that produced the Steele dossier. So all of this is now out. We now know this. We also know that the initial investigations about me in 2015 were funded by Soros, George Soros, because he lost business with Yanukovych being elected president that he was expecting to have. And who did he fund it with? People who were part of ultimately the Ukraine impeachment process, who came out of the deep state to create false facts on Trump and what Trump was trying to do in Ukraine as well. So all of this is now out there. A lot of it's in my book. Some of it's come out since my book was published, but it's consistent with my book. And so what you've now are seeing is other pieces starting to fall, like this FBI counterintelligence division chief being declared, being indicted for treasonous activities in dealing with Russians and dealing with Russians that he was supposedly providing intel to the FBI on, yet he was actually a double agent on. That's all, but we're moving beyond that now. It's a thing of the past. What's not a thing of the past, though, is the tactics, because you're now seeing the same tactics with what they're trying to do to President Trump with the documents, with the classified documents, and of course now they've been undercut again by their own activities. And the point is, if it's a crime, if having classified documents is a crime, whether you did a nice job, whether you're nice with the government or difficult with the government, it's still a crime. So any way you look at it, Biden is guilty of the same thing they're accusing Trump of. And for the Justice Department to come down with any other conclusion, they're both in the same place. Now, should they be prosecuted? Of course not. This is something that we've got to have better regulations on. There's got to be better control on. It shouldn't happen, but it does. And so it should be dealt with. But regardless, the point is that the crime is having classified documents. Trump was president. He says he declassified them. That's a defense. Biden was vice president. He didn't have the authority to declassify them. So he doesn't have that defense. Plus, some of the documents they found about Biden were from a SCIF when he was a senator, and nobody is allowed to take documents out of a SCIF. So the fact that they were in Biden's control, somebody stole those documents, and he had them. So the prima facie case is he stole the documents from a SCIF. I'm not saying he did, but he's got to prove that he didn't. He's got to explain why those kind of documents were in his home. The Democrats are even concerned about that. Dick Durbin, Joe Manchin this past weekend have both expressed very deep concern about this issue. And so do I think this should disqualify Biden from running for president? No. Nor should it be a basis for them saying Trump shouldn't run for president. What Trump and Biden should be able to do is present the record of Trump versus the record of Biden and let the American people decide.
Fascinating. Paul, we're going to go to break real quick. And when we get back, I want to ask you about your time in solitary confinement and how they tried to get you to turn on Donald Trump and give up some dirt. Folks, we're going to be right back. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these quick messages from our sponsors.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm excited to bring you my Giza Dream bed sheets for the best offer ever. We're all experiencing rising prices, but I was able to secure a limited amount of Giza cotton for a great price, and I'm passing those savings directly on to you. You can get my Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98 with your promo code. They're the most luxurious sheets ever, made with the world's best cotton. It's grown only in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River. I know my sheets are perfect for you, and I'm extending my 60-day money-back guarantee for Christmas until March 1st, 2023, making them the perfect gifts for your friends, your family, and everyone you know. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 50% on my Giza Dream bed sheets. That's as low as $29.98. Quantities are extremely limited at these amazing prices, so please order now.
Are you concerned about your child's education? Are you considering removing your children from the failing public schools? Greater Than I Ministries can help by giving you 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Biblical Worldview video series and a free home educator's kit as a bonus for your purchase. This powerful video series will thoroughly equip you and your family with the truth that you need to fight the battle of ideas warring against our families. And our free home educator's kit will instantly connect you with the resources you need to take control of your child's education. Just go to gtimin.com and click the Buy Now button at the top. Choose the DVD or the streaming version. Then enter the promo code Newman at the checkout for your 15% discount. That's gtimin.com. Click the Buy Now button at the top, choose the format you wish, and enter the promo code Newman at the checkout to receive our free home educator's kit and 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Worldview video series. You'll be glad you did.
Art, passion, visual adventure, value, investment. Visit us at CoralGablesArtGallery.com or call 786-284-2249.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. I'm Alex Newman, your host. Thank you for tuning in here on Frank Speech Lindell TV or whatever platform you are watching us on. Our guest today is Paul Manafort. He was the chairman of Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, the successful campaign, and he ended up being basically taken out by the intelligence agencies and the law enforcement agencies. They even held him in solitary confinement for a time. It made me think of the words of Lavrentiy Beria, the head of Stalin's NKVD, who said, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime." He ended up being taken out of a meeting with a rag stuffed in his mouth and shot during one of the many purges. But Paul, one of the things you talk about in your book is how they were trying to get you to give up some information on Donald Trump, something. And I heard the same thing. You know, Roger Stone told me they tried that. Jerome Corsi. It seems like they just got a bunch of people and tried to get them to turn on Trump. What was your experience, and what was that like, and how did it go?
Well, in the book, it's too long to talk about here today, but in the book, I lay out what Mueller/Weissman theory on the case of Russian collusion was. I mean, it was a crazy case. It had no sense of facts. There were no facts. But he connected thoughts of his into what he said was collusion. And what he wanted me to do was to confirm dates, to confirm conversations. The problem was the dates never happened, the conversations never happened, and his facts were all wrong. And so they kept ratcheting up the pressure on me. First, they brought, I think it was 14 charges. Then they brought another 32 charges. Then they wouldn't. I had to have a $10 million bail. Like John Gotti's was less than my bail. That's how dangerous I was. And then when I finally was able to get my bail organized, and it took me several months because I didn't have 10 million, and they knew that. They made up a false obstruction of justice charge on a conversation where I called somebody to tell him that he's probably going to have to get a lawyer, and never talked to him. But that was the attempt to reach out to him was an obstruction of justice call, and they threw me directly from court into prison, into solitary confinement for my safety. Solitary confinement was for my safety. Well, eventually, when I was convicted and went to prison, I was put into the general population. I never had any problems. There was no need for my safety. The whole solitary confinement thing was meant to try to squeeze me for further pressure. And in fact, they not only put me in solitary confinement, they wanted to put me in Rikers Island on solitary confinement as well, which is one of the notorious prisons in New York. So they just kept ratcheting up the pressure. But I told them I wasn't going to lie. I said, I'll tell them anything they want to know. That's the truth. Because the truth set me free and would set me free and end the debate. But the truth was not what they were seeking. They were looking for lies that would allow them to pursue Donald Trump. And if you look at the Senate Intel report on the Russian collusion part on my part, on me, there's 90 pages on me. There's not one fact. It's all rumors. There's not one fact. They don't have one document that shows anything connecting me or any of the people I was with into Russian collusion. They talk about polls. They talk about somebody who worked for me, a Russian who worked for me, who also worked for John McCain. He was number 2 in the International Republican Institute office in Moscow. He was vetted by the CIA, the FBI, and working there. He was vetted by the CIA. And this is one of the few pieces of information that is still under seal from my trial, is the part that deals with this person, Konstantin Kilimnik. Because the evidence that they're not letting us show will show that not only was Konstantin Kilimnik not a Russian spy, he was a U.S. asset. He had his own code name. The State Department gave him his own code name to protect him. That's how much they valued him. And the cable traffic of the things that when they talk about him, none of that can be public because it's all under seal. But the reality, but does the Senate Intel report talk about that? No. Does the Mueller report talk about that? No. They say that because he was in the military, which was mandatory, by the way, for everybody in Russia, for 2 years, and was in the language school where Russian agents get trained as well as Russian army personnel, that proves he was a Russian spy. No facts, none. And so because I stayed to the story, And I wouldn't agree. I mean, Weissman was trying to get me to admit that I met with Kalemnik in Madrid in March of 2017. There was no meeting. He said, "Well, what if I show you the tickets that say he was there?" I said, "You could show me. I would be surprised if you have them because I don't know of any meeting I had with him." Well, it was a lie. It was a lie. But being in solitary, my mind was dulled. He was trying to confuse me and trick me. He didn't. And that only angered him more. And that only allowed him to ratchet the pressure up more. And they did. But I had my faith. I had my family. I had the knowledge that I was right and not guilty of this. And I decided, I mean, the Bible got me through. I mean, my time in solitary confinement. And I read it from the beginning to the end as a history book as well as a religious book. And then the parts about St. Paul, my namesake, were very impactful on me. And I realized that my suffering would have a purpose. And I didn't view it as something bad happening to me, but I viewed that God is preparing me for something, and the suffering was helping me to do that. And frankly, now as I've been out, and been active in the community again, I'm speaking at different groups, and I'm finding that my story has been an inspiration for people. It wasn't meant to be, but people see that the message that I communicate impacts their lives as well. And the reason I wrote the book and the reason I've been giving these speeches is because the concern I have is what happened to me can happen to the American people. And
we're down to just about 2 minutes left, and I want to ask you, are you hopeful that there will be accountability for people who? I mean, you describe yourself as a political prisoner here. Who needs to be held accountable? How should they be held accountable? Do you think it will happen? Thoughts?
Well, I think it's important that we expose the deep state, the corruption at the FBI, the corruption in the CIA. Some of that has come out. I think a lot more is going to come out. We have in the House investigations that are going to be happening. And I think the double standard of justice is going to be exposed for that. I find it very interesting how the media is going to respond to this classified documents issue, because the same issue, as I said in the beginning of this interview, is the same for both Trump and for Biden, and also, by the way, for Hillary Clinton, who was exonerated by Jim Comey for having classified documents. And so the law says if you have it, you're violating the law. Biden doesn't have the excuse of that Trump that can use that he declassified them. Biden is dead wrong to have those documents. The SCIF documents, even his own Democratic Party has said he was wrong for. So there's a double standard there. It's going to be interesting to see how the system the Democrat system tries to use it. But I do think that it's going to be exposed in a way that it's going to rebound against the Democrats. And those messages, I think, will help motivate people who are already starting to become engaged because of what's happening in education, because of what's happening in crime on the street, because of those personal security issues. It's happening. 2022 helped move that dial. And 2024, I believe, is going to allow us to complete that movement and take back the government and allow us to fix the corruption. And with the presidency, if Trump is elected, that is experienced from the 4 years of his office, I believe that he will move quickly to root out the corruption in real ways that he didn't have the chance to do because he was still learning on the job during his first term.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Paul, what's the best way to get your book, Political Prisoner, Persecuted, Prosecuted, but Not Silenced? Where would you recommend people go to get that?
It's still available. Amazon.com has it. Barnes & Noble. It's still in some bookstores. A lot of them have sold out, I'm happy to announce. But it's available in the online book sites and also with Amazon.
All right. Well, Paul, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. Please keep us updated, and hopefully we'll get you back.
Thank you, Alex. Good talking to you.
Thank you, sir. All righty, folks. Paul Manafort. Go get a copy of the book. That name, one more time, is Political Prisoner, Persecuted, Prosecuted, but Not Silenced. The inside story of what happened to Paul Manafort, Trump's 2016 campaign chairman. And you know what? I've been saying this since it started. Something really fishy is going on here. They were going after all of the key people, and it really made me think of Banana Republic. It's just incredible to have seen this happening in my own country. I grew up in third world banana republics, and so it was just a real shock to see that happening here in America. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'm Alex Newman. This is the Sentinel Report. Roger Stone is up next if you're watching us live with the Stone Zone, so stay tuned. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, God bless you all.